Yeah. What's going on out there, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Colored Commentary. That is right. This is colorful conversations by colorful people about Christianity, culture, and race. I'm your host, Marcus Lloyd. Right here in the studio with me is the man, Antwuan Malone. What's up, Antwuan?
What's up, everybody? How are y'all doing today?
Man, I hope they're feeling good, because I'm feeling good today,
I'm
Antwuan.
feeling good. It's going down today.
It's going down today? Are you sure?
I'm ready.
Okay, because this is I don't
the
know.
one. I got let me
stretch it out a bit.
Let me warm up my shoulders a little bit.
Well, this is such an interesting podcast today, because I don't know. It feels like it should be a lighter podcast, and yet I don't know. Right?
Yeah, this is the culture version of our.
Is it?
We've been hitting like race. You said we're about race, culture, and Christianity.
Yeah.
So this is probably one of the first like straight out culture episodes.
Well, it definitely has a heavier, like, we're dealing with something that's happening in the culture, and yet I think there's a racial aspect to it that plays out.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
So ultimately, the story is right, and when we're recording this, several. I get what has been weeks now, or was it a week ago? I don't know, but the internet blew up.
Oh yeah.
The internet blew up when Disney announced that they were going to have a black Little Mermaid. Ariel was going to be a sister.
She's been in the sun too long.
Too long, man. I mean,
too long.
It's just, you think Under the Sea that it'd be a different thing. I don't know, but it opened up Pandora's box for discussions about, whether that's, I don't know if it's racial appropriation. Or or just putting who deserves the role, or what the role, who should the role be? Should it be this type of person?
Yeah.
Don't mess with that. All those kinds of things.
The pros and cons of going that way, and
yeah,
there's a lot to talk about just with that.
And I think we can get to that. I think because we're dealing in this racial category, I think it's very helpful for us to kind of get some background, because Disney, in this concept of race, right? Yeah. Disney is not they're not new to this, right? They've got some baggage, they got some history, which I think may help us even understand possibly what they're doing right now, right?
So like what goes into making a decision like that.
Yeah.
Because that's a deliberate decision.
Correct.
And Disney is calculated, if nothing else.
Well, absolutely. And they should be, because
they own half of Hollywood.
They own half of Hollywood.
Almost all of our media is coming from them now. So
yes. And that brings me to the section of the show I'd like to call What's Hiding in Disney's Vault.
What's hiding in? We should have a little drop.
What's hiding?
Opening up.
So I don't know about you, but I have younger kids, and so I'm introducing them to Disney.
You do know about me,
yes.
And you do know that I don't have younger
kids. Okay. Well, that's a fair assessment. I was trying to transition here, but that's fine. So I bought a movie not too long ago for my sons. I thought, oh my gosh, this is an old movie. I used to love this movie. I'm going to bring it out. It's going to be amazing. It was Peter Pan.
Oh,
and I'm watching this movie with my kids.
Peter Pan.
And it gets to this scene with the Native Americans.
Yeah.
And they have a song, Why is the Red? Exactly.
Boom, boom,
and
boom,
it was so cringeworthy right
Why
there.
Does the red
Are you gonna just gonna sing it on the thing?
I got them too.
Okay. So Disney's got some of these things in their vault. They've got their Peter Pan, where they are, ultimately just a very offensive sort of song in today's modern ear.
Yeah, it probably was for them back then. It wasn't a voice to kind of let it out, really.
Yeah, that's the thing, because people will say that. They go, hey, that was the context of the day.
Yeah.
And I would say, you're right. I think that's a great way to say that. For the Native Americans, that's always been offensive.
Yeah.
Right? But for the culture, it's been like, oh, it's okay. It's the 1950s, right? It was 1953, right? They can do that kind of stuff. Sure. And so Disney has a couple of those movies. So you got the Peter Pan that's out there, where we got the deal with the Native Americans. You've got several others we'll talk about throughout the rest of the show, but I'm thinking of Lady and the Tramp. That's one where people talk about the Siamese cats.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they are Siamese cats, Si and Am, right? And they are drawn as the way Disney tends to draw their Asian characters, with like slanty eyes. They've got these buck teeth, and they speak in broken English. And every time they enter, it's like a gong is played, right? So these are the kinds of things, right? Culturally, again, contextually, during that time, like nobody got offended by that, but the Asians were always offended by that. Asian people have been offended by that.
That's the one that flew under my own radar.
Yeah,
I mean, I just like the song.
Well, see, and that is part of it, right? Like some of these things are just sewn into just they were so much a part of our upbringing and really helping us maybe even determine how we think about other cultures, right? And I mean, and it's animals, right? But they do even there's a movie called The Aristocats. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah.
They had a whole thing. It wasn't a great movie, but even amongst like the animals, right? Like it's this whole, this alley cat coming and connecting with sort of this very upper class cat. The upper class cat is white. The alley cat is brown. The alley cat runs around with this group of folks that are all these sort of different cultures represented in the cats. There's like the Italian guy. There's like the Scandinavian guy. But then they have this other character. I'm trying to remember the cat's name in there, but he's an Asian cat. Again, slanty eyes, buck teeth. He's playing drums and he's got a cymbal on his head that looks kind of like what the stereotypical
I
sort
remember
of
that
Asian
one.
and he's playing the piano with chopsticks. This is Disney's vault. That's in there.
So would you say that would you say those movies were a reflection? Would you say Disney would defend themselves by saying that's not our thoughts? We're just reflecting the cultural mindset. Or is it more sinister than that? You think they're driving culture with those films?
Well, it's that question of, does art imitate life or does, life imitate art?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think you can, I don't know if, look, I don't even know if that's the right question, right? Like, whatever happened, it's on the screen.
At the end of the day, it's not helping.
Yeah, it's on the screen. Yeah, it's exactly. And so you've got to try to figure out, like, what do we do with that? Because think about it like this way. Here's why the word sinister is an interesting word. Like, I don't think about it like, is Disney being sinister? Although we always are questioning, like, when we see things happen, whether it's in cartoons, whether it's in policy, like, there's always a sense of like, but are they doing that on purpose? Are they making a comment? It is your children, our children, you and I, we watched that. Yeah. And without any other relationship with, say, Asian Americans, that is telling us what we should think about Asian Americans. Like, that's telling us this is who they are because we have no relationship with them. So in many ways, Disney, particularly why it's even more crucial looking at Disney stuff, is it is shaping the young minds of the world. Right? So it's a reason why it's in the vault, and they hadn't brought some of that stuff out, but now you got Disney Plus, right? That's coming out.
That's coming.
And so, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, kind of even how Disney looks at those movies, right? And what they're doing with that. But so that's kind of there's a way more in Disney's vault, and I want to bring up we'll bring up some of those later. But then there's this sense now, like that they're remaking things,
right?
And there are movies that in the vault have a lot of racial implications, and then they're remaking these movies and scrubbing those, right? So I don't know. You got any movies you can? I'm thinking of the first one I think of as Dumbo, right?
Right.
Like this is the recent deal. Did you get to see that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and Dumbo is a mess. I remember telling somebody, I was like, hey, I was sitting down with some people in Whataburger or what have you, and I was like, hey, Dumbo is kind of wild. There's a crow in there named Jim, and the dude, and it totally went by their heads. Yeah, I was like, and he's just like this wise, he just got jive talking.
I'll be unseen about everything.
I know all of that, right? I was like, oh wait a minute, hold up, and then I watched their eyeballs brighten for a second, like, yeah, bro. Yeah, Jim the Crow.
Yes,
right?
Jim Crow.
As in
that? As in many of the ways in which the laws that hindered black movement throughout the United States.
That is a mess.
And what's
and audacious. It feels audacious.
It is audacious.
This is why I'm saying, like, was it audacious, or I mean, we're not going to answer the question, but it is the thing that's in my head. Like, is it a mirror? Or are they saying, hey, we want to continue to perpetuate? Because there's reports out that Disney had a it was racist, not racist, but had a different view of various racism. If you look that up, Google that and all.
Like different.
He
Oh, you mean Walt?
Walt. Yeah,
okay, yeah.
The person. I'm hesitating to call him a racist.
Okay,
but
I don't.
But he said I don't. Well, because I don't have the data right in front of me. But I've caught wind of that, and so some of that talk is out there, which makes you think some of these creative decisions may not
were made with those implications.
Maybe not sinister like we used before, but maybe with some sort of intention.
Well, and that's again that sort of discussion of sinister, right? Like we're constantly, you and I are talking about this, and we'll talk about it on the shows at a different time. Like racism is so much of the way people think about racism is antiquated. It's thinking about El Ku Klux Klan. It's thinking about even thinking about Jim Crow laws, right? But the ways in which people of color are represented in certain ways, people forget. They don't think about those as racist things.
Right.
And so the people during this time, they're seeing, this is 1941 for Dumbo, right?
Yeah.
They're seeing Jim Crow, and they're not thinking that this is racist. We're looking back and we're going, do you not see this?
Yeah.
So it's that idea of helping us
see that
understand.
because it's normal for them.
Correct. It's the norm. And that's where I think we have to be very good or be better at the arrogance of the now. Like we think we know everything in our moment.
Yeah.
And so when we call out racism in our time, like in today, 2019, people are like, oh, that's not racist. Racist is Jim Crow as a crow in Dumbo, right? But we're going to look back in 50 years and there's going to be things that we're seeing about ourselves, right, and about our society that we go, oh my gosh, that's racist. I
can't believe I said this.
And so it opens up the door to be like, hey, maybe it's good to listen when people, particularly whoever you're representing, so Disney's representing African Americans in this Jim Crow sort of deal. And if African Americans say, hey, we don't like this makes us feel that instead of going, oh, it's just a joke, no big deal, right? Yeah, that you listen and go, okay, well, maybe we need to do something about it.
Right, because it can be both. It can be that it's racist and a reflection of normalcy for the time period. Yeah. It can be both of those things. It doesn't mean that it should continue or that it should be that it should go unfixed, which is kind of where we're going. So we get to the new movies.
Yeah.
And some different choices. Like I didn't see Jim Crow at all,
which is a reflection on
this show,
their understanding of maybe how inappropriate that was. Right. Yeah. This is where I would kind of get into the imagination reparation.
That's right. This is the creative. The creative reparation.
Yes, creative reparation. But I think about because Disney, they've got their Imagineers, and they're all about the imagination.
We just blew people's minds by saying creative reparation because everybody, when they think reparation,
correct,
they're thinking money.
Money.
We're talking about no. Let's just look at the word literally, like to repair.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is some of what these.
And so this is the ways that. How has media affected cultural understanding of races, and how do we repair that? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So you got Dumbo, right? 1941, Jim Crow, talking about that. And then here we go, 2019, and they're taking the crows out. And so they understood, okay, that wasn't the way we should do that. We shouldn't bring that back in and drop it in and be like, what is this?
Can you imagine? Can you imagine had they done that?
Oh, man.
Just had a Black Lives Matter shirt on, the crow with
oh my gosh, yes.
They would get Andre 3000.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who would cast.
Who they casted that? Raleigh coming in, bringing in the stuff. Now I'm kind of mad they didn't put it in. All right, moving on.
Okay.
All right, another remake, an imagination reparation is Aladdin. Okay, so that's another one that just kind of rolled in. Are you familiar with sort of the racial pushback on Aladdin? Have you been familiar with that?
I know that I know of some of it. I know that Tom Cruise. I know that they based the character on Tom Cruise's look. Aladdin.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was literally like. Now
that you said it,
you put him up against each other.
I'm there. Yeah.
They drew him off of Tom Cruise because he was so likable at the time.
I love it.
Just at the time.
Just like, hey, we're gonna put a cartoon and make it look like Tom Cruise, so we can.
That's what they did. It's on there.
That's
and
funny.
then, so they based on that, and then of course you always had the white voices in that time period. So I know of those things, and then of course there's some weird stuff with Jasmine toward the end there with how she's all slinky and, and her thing.
Well, I know that the big thing that really got got people going is that opening song. You know what I mean? Oh, I come from a land, right? That kind of thing. So in the original version, when he sings that song, he says, I come from a land, from a faraway place, whatever. And he says, where they cut off your ear if they don't like your face. It's barbaric, but hey, it's home. And so the Arab community was like, what? What are you talking? You're saying, what about my place of origin? It's barbaric. It's places where they just cut off people's hands if they don't like you. Like, this is offensive. It is perpetrating, or it's perpetuating a stereotype about the land that I come from that is not fully accurate. And so what Disney did is like, okay, we hear you. And then when they did the videotape release, they changed it and they say, where it's flat and intense and the heat is immense. It's barbaric, but hey, it's home.
That's right, because I still remember it's barbaric.
Yeah.
I was about to say, because I was like, I don't remember that line that you just said, but okay, they changed it.
Yeah, so they half changed it, and they left the barbaric in, and they were just like, look, this is the best you're going to get from us. That we're not changing anything else. Like, this is
our concession.
This is our concession. Then, all right, so moving forward in that, we have sort of the new Aladdin. Did you get to check that one out?
Yes. Much better than I thought, by the way.
Yeah.
I actually would recommend it for people who are on the fence about it.
Who are on the fence? Okay, well, it's a recommended
I'll
movie.
get my check from Disney soon.
Yeah, there you go. Well, move forward to that. They changed it then in the new one. The new version goes, where you wander among every culture and tongue. It's chaotic, but hey, it's home, right? So they've done this repair of the line, specifically that line, because that brought so much controversy from those who the movie was supposed to be representing.
Wow.
So it's a question of like,
that's crazy how I didn't catch any of that, and I pride myself on catching details.
And this is part of, again, where we're talking about colored commentary. There's just so many other things other than just the black and white issue. This is why I love doing the show, because as we continue to expand in our relationships with people outside of our own communities, we're hearing like all these ways in which people see media differently, and we didn't even realize that we were being conditioned to think that this was normal, right? With everything that we do in this country around those who are from an Arab background, the ways we portray them on TV, the parts they play, it wouldn't bother us at all that they would say that they're barbaric, because that's the only representation that we ever get.
It lines up.
Yeah, it lines up. At least the way we've represented it. It's not lines up with who they actually are.
Right. Lines up with what we've been taught to understand about that.
And once again, you're talking about Disney, who is shaping the minds of the young generation of the world, right? And so they saw that and they moved on from that and they changed that. And just a creative reparation. Now here's I'm gonna go off on a slight aside here just for a second. So because we're going to talk about Little Mermaid again, we're getting back to that.
We're going to get back to that.
Right.
Got to.
So we've got this thing where you put in a black Ariel, and yet on Aladdin, when they put in Will Smith as the genie, people had a problem. But what did they have a problem with, Antwuan, you may ask?
They had a problem with his inability to live up to Robin Williams' standards.
But from a racial standpoint, they did not have a problem with him being black. They had a problem with the fact that he was blue. They didn't like the blue CG work that they did. If you get the internet and you try to go and see what people
remember. I remember that first trailer.
But nobody said anything about changing the genie into a black dude. That's so interesting to me. Has Will Smith crossed over that much that people don't even really, like, when you put him in any role, they're like, oh, that's not even a black guy for me.
I think it's more that the genie was no race.
What's that? Did Raleigh, you jump in on this?
Well, I was going to say either no race or seen as somewhat of a minstrel black character originally, right?
At
even
the
though
beginning,
even though it was played by Robin Williams, is it not closer to that sort of...
If you were going to go down that road of where black, that minstrel sort of characterization of blackness would have appeared in that, they would have gone with the genie. And actually, if you were going to get really racist, they would have been doing something with the monkey. You know what I mean? They would have done that.
Well, see, the genie's all personality because he was blue. Although we know that at the beginning of the movie, the guy who's singing the first song looks
Yeah, he looks like he belongs in contextually
appropriate.
Yep.
And so therefore he does have a race, I guess, there. But we don't know him as that. Like
correct.
Everyone knows the genie as the blue character. And therefore, so as long as he was blue,
but he went in and out.
I think it was fine. It didn't matter who played him.
Yeah. But see, he also had to not be blue. Like there were times that he had to be kind of with Aladdin, and he was
and that's to your point. That is interesting that he was able to be Will Smith as much as he was on screen, like not blue.
Yeah,
and we rode with it.
We rode with that. So that I don't know. There's something in there, right? So anyway, the repair. That's an aside, right?
That's
and I think
something to think about.
It is something to think about. It may go later in the conversation. Okay, so next remake, Lion King. Now I know you know the stuff online.
Oh yeah. All right,
so it was 1994. What do you remember about that?
Okay, so Lion King was Matthew Broderick. You know, same thing.
Sure.
White voices playing.
What are you gonna say?
Black African.
What?
African. Let's see.
You can't even say it, right? Like, because it's such a weird.
I'm saying it. Black people.
Okay.
As animals. Doggone it. It's Africans.
It is.
Let's just say African.
It is.
See, I can't say Africans because that makes it feel weird.
Yes, they can.
Creatures from Africa.
I think that's a good way to do that.
Okay,
it is taking place in Africa.
It's in Africa, so I should have some.
So the stereotype.
Yeah.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
Africa is where.
If we go to Europe and get some African voices in Spain, then something's not quite right. So even if it's just about Spanish birds or something.
But the issue is you've got this, and look, I'll talk about it in a minute, right? Like Disney has not done a lot of things that represent the African American culture. Right. And so we'll talk about, you look at me like, what about Princess and the Frog? We'll get there. And so you've got this film in which it takes place where brown people live. And so what you assume is these creatures are found in places where brown people are. You should voice them because of the very few other opportunities that you've given them to voice, or the way that you've given them to voice their
is that
characters.
And in the nature of the show starts out with an African, like
it has a very African sound to it.
They chose this. The film celebrates on some level,
African culture.
African culture.
So to have a Matthew Broderick in the older, because they had a young African American boy as young Simba, but then moved to.
So they had a mixed cast, but you'd feel like, man, why don't you just go all brown?
Well, or at least be consistent with it. So you have a young African American boy, and then he grows up to be, in his maturation, he becomes white. I got that wrong. It's he. I don't know how I got this wrong.
Yeah, fix it.
The young Simba is Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Did you remember that?
Yeah,
JTT.
So
he plays young Simba.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nala is an African American girl.
Oh, that's right.
And then
she
becomes white.
That's right. Yes.
Mariah. I forget her name. Mariah Kelly, who plays old Nala. So both old Simba and old Nala become white people who finish it off, right? At least white voices, if you will.
Okay.
But anyway, so that was definitely a controversy. Also, the controversy around the hyenas.
That's right. Yeah, and the hyenas. Yes. And you had the Hispanic culture.
Yeah, Cheech Marin playing one of the hyenas. You had Whoopi Goldberg. Both of those characters spoke in very stereotypical ways for the cultures.
And you had Ed, which is it's not race thing. That's a different conversation. But.
Well, and Ed was played by the guy who plays Tigger, right? But he didn't say anything. He just kind of moaned and laughed. Yeah. And they lived in the projects. They lived in an elephant graveyard in the shadows. Right, yeah. They're kind of off on that deal, and so people had this. It felt to people like they were making a comment on sort of the projects, and that was predominantly African American and Latino, and so people had an issue. And again, the caricatures that were kind of played out in these hyenas being lazy and not as intelligent, uber aggressive for no particular reason, and then many of the laughs of the movie were at the because of the characters and the characterization, right?
Right, because of their cultural representation, almost.
Right,
like
exactly.
How they talked.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So moving forward into Lion King, you and I, we just both saw it. right?
Yeah, we saw it last night.
How did it? Spoiler alert, I guess. This is what we can,
as much as you can spoil a 1994.
I know, right? Like, but it's
highly beloved cartoon.
Yes,
classic.
but from a racially creative reparation standpoint, how did they go about?
Well, we know it's an all black cast.
Mm-hmm.
So
mostly, I mean, you obviously got other folks playing different.
Yeah. Oh, okay, you're right. But yeah. So predominantly. Well,
I
the
think
places
in the main
where
roles,
places where you would expect to see black voices, that's where they are.
Sure,
so,
definitely lead wise.
Yeah,
you're getting those.
Because like Timon and Pumbaa, you wouldn't expect those. They don't. For some reason, they don't feel like they have to be.
They don't feel like they have to be.
Yeah.
Because you want to. Again, I think a multiracial cast is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But when you've got like and it comes down to as a person who is an African American voice actor and looking at the roles that you have opportunity for.
Yeah.
To take away those lead roles and the opportunities that come with being a lead role, the income that comes with being a lead role, taking those away from a movie that is set in an African context.
Do you feel like you could have did some Simba, adult Simba?
Well, of course. Of course I could have done that.
Disney, he said, holla at me, Disney, next time.
I
Lion King 2 featuring Marcus Lloyd.
I don't know if I would have done as well. I don't know how well I would have done.
Don't try to be sheepish about it now.
So what did you see? Did they repair? What did they do?
There were those reparations, like with regard to, providing the right sort of races or colors to appropriate to be appropriately connected to those characters.
Yeah.
There was that, and then there was I thought there were same thing with the hyenas.
Yeah.
And they made some changes with the hyena, like especially, and I actually thought this was a really cool change.
Okay.
Slight spoiler. But the way they changed Shanzi, which is the lead hyena, that's the Whoopi Goldberg character from before. She was kind of the leader of that band as well then. Mm-hmm. But in this one, she takes they play it extremely straight with those hyenas. So there's some comedy there, but she's not comedic at all. She plays a much stronger character.
Yeah, the comedy doesn't come from the caricatures; it comes from more situations.
Absolutely, and their sense of humor and jokes, the jokes that they're trying to make, is kind of not because let's laugh at how Hispanics sound when they say this or whatever, or the slang that they use or whatever. Yeah,
and they still are over in the Shadowlands. I mean, it's still the story of Lion King.
It's true.
And when
that has to work for the story. Somebody's got to be.
I know. And the hard part though is like, if it's done, if we didn't have the original, it wouldn't be. It'd be I wonder if it would still be an issue because you still have the hyenas. They got the Shadowlands, and then when you let them into the Pride Lands.
Yeah,
they destroy it.
Yeah, that's the whole premise.
Yeah, the whole premise
I hear that, but
breaking,
then there's got to be this. That's kind of reflective of the natural order, I think.
Natural order of what?
Like of lions and hyenas and the way they do things. Discovery Channel. Thank you, but
but look that up.
So there's that a little bit, but. But yeah, you've got to create this contrast. Otherwise, you don't have. I don't know who the enemies would be. And it's the natural thing is hyenas and lions and.
Well, you got to have a villain in the story.
Yeah.
Right, and you've got to have that sort of.
So
sense
on some level, like you've got to concede somewhere on that.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I think because originally it had sort of those racial implications by the voicing. It was more suspect.
Yeah, but you're right. It does echo the whole once black people move into this, there goes the neighborhood kind of a situation.
Yeah, we're going to have to find another spot. They're going to tear this up.
Yeah,
exactly. And again, in this movie, because most of the characters are voiced by African Americans.
I should say people of color.
People of color. Black people. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Correction there. So it's again Disney. The story is the story, but the reparative aspects where they got challenged in some of these ways by people of color, they've made those repairs. So now moving into Little Mermaid, right? We're getting to Little Mermaid. Now, the original one, it was the beginning of the Disney Renaissance, right? It's the one that kind of launched all that new flavor of movies coming in. It was released in 1989. I remember that movie coming out.
I do too.
It was really cool. And so in that movie, there's some things that didn't hit me right. I remember even as a child, I was like, wait a second. And even more as I see it now. So you've got there are three characters that have some sort of connection very specifically to people of color and stereotypes and racial tropes that kind of follow them. The first is pretty obvious. One of the main characters, Sebastian, right? He's a crab, and he's drawn with these big lips. He's got a Jamaican accent. His seminal work, if you will, in the film is I feel so pretentious when I call it a film. It's a cartoon, right? Like, can I say that?
Disney would call it a film.
Well, they call it a film. As you're looking at the piece, at the piece that we're working on. But he's big-lipped crab, Jamaican voice.
Yep.
His seminal work is Under the Sea, which is all about, hey, you don't want to go up there. They work all day. We need to be down here where we just kind of play and hang out and, just kind of dance the day away, right?
Yeah.
Sort of that lazy character. And in that song, they introduce us to two other images of what would be stereotypically connected to black people. One is there's this jazz fish that's got this, sort of choral horn that he's playing, and he's got sort of the big lips that represents sort of that jazz character. He's like, yeah. Got that in there, he does that.
Yeah.
And then you have, of course, the black fish who sings. Remember that? Like she's literally a black fish. She's got on what seems to be almost like a nightclub attire. She's got big red lips. I mean, if you look at the picture, it is a throwback to the minstrel representations of black people. Black face, big red lips, right? And singing with a choir behind her, right? So these are some of the images ways in which Disney is articulating and telling that generation who grew up with it to view people of color. These are the things you should expect. If you have no relationship with black people, you believe them to be from this lazy, want to just hang out all day, particularly. You have the opportunity. I can hear people going, that's not what I thought.
Right,
okay,
right.
But these are the things that are subconscious.
Right, but can I push?
Yeah, please.
I'm going to push back a little bit.
Good.
So, because the other persons would say, but Sebastian's the conscience of the, he's the, he's the dodo. What's the dodo in Lion King?
Dodo.
What's the Lion King?
Zazu.
Zazu. Mm-hmm. He's the Zazu of Little Mermaid. So he's the one
Jiminy
that's like,
Cricket.
yeah, he's the one that's like, hey, Ariel, quit doing dumb stuff. He's trying to convince her that, down here is cool because the reason she wants to go up there because she thinks it's cool up there. So he's trying to take a new angle. And so at the end of the day, Sebastian's a positive character. So even if he is a black character, he's a value add to the proper order of things under the sea.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that.
That's what they would say.
I think if you're looking at Little Mermaid in the senses of the visual representation of this, is what it looks like.
The visual piece, and then they drew off the guy, so you have to wonder: did the guy have bigger lips?
Well, does the blackfish look like that? Whoever did her song,
the blackfish. I'm looking at the picture right now, and that's a mess right there.
You can't say anything. You can't say nothing on that. When it's a still, and it has to hold.
That's right.
You just like, wait a second.
I could push back with, okay, a jazz singer in a club would be well made up, so would have bluer eye, makeup on her eyes and lipstick on her lips, but.
It's hard. Okay,
I don't know.
So these are the things. Again, it's much subtler, if you will.
They just want to get it in. They just want to
get
it out real quick
because it comes quick. Right, and it's in the middle of like a great song. You're like, yeah man, under the sea. We're in it, going. It's like, oh, blackfish, cool. And so
blackfish, cool. The blackfish.
Yes, we're in. So anyway, so now we're getting into. So we talked about a couple. We talked about the vault they've been in. We talked about ways in which they're repairing. Now we're here at this Little Mermaid.
Okay,
they put in. Her name is Halle Bailey.
Halle Bailey.
Put her in as Ariel. What do you think?
Okay, I've thought about this.
All right.
And
well, that's good. I'm glad that you thought about it. That's helpful for the show.
Well, I thought about it because it came out, and I was like, okay, what? Here's what I'm gonna say. The hot take is, I don't think they should have did it.
Okay.
I think they should have stuck with a white girl with red hair.
Okay. Why is that?
Because the character's a white girl with red hair. Like, I don't know how if I would go I watched Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And read Harry Potter, which, by the way, there's something that I won't get into.
Don't get it. We don't have time for that.
But if they would make Harry Potter a Chinese kid, I think I'd have a problem with that.
And just so you know, what Antwuan says has nothing to do with color commentary. all his comments are his own. Why did it have to be a Chinese kid?
I just do Chinese. I didn't want to say black. Okay. But it could be anything.
Because you would have a problem with it if it was a black Harry Potter. Is that what you're saying?
I would also have a problem if he'd have to be white with brown glasses, brown hair, and a scar.
Okay.
In the same way that any traditional black cartoon character, which I can't think of at the moment, I wouldn't want them to switch.
So here's the thing, though, right? Like, when you talk about Harry Potter, like, he takes place in a real place, right?
True.
Like he could actually exist, and he does, in a sense. And his place where he lives is an actual place. It's a
Harry
reality.
Potter exists?
He exists.
Can I meet him?
Oh yeah. You can go to Universal Studios and see him.
Cool.
So that's where I think I hear people pushing back. Like, it makes sense in the culture of where Harry Potter takes place.
Yeah.
In the UK, British culture, that you're going to see a Harry Potter that looks like that. Yeah. But when you're talking about a fictitious area like under the sea, why the question becomes, why did Ariel have to be a white girl with red hair when they first did it?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, yes, but that's a separate conversation than why, unless there's a very race bending reason for making her white. The normal is white. Most characters are white. Normally
characters we are presented in our society.
In our society are white. So the natural default is white. So the reason she's white, you could say, is because they all start white unless there's a compelling reason to make them not white. And under the sea, even for me, I've heard the Caribbean and I've heard I've heard some of the arguments, and I think they're good. Those are good arguments. And I don't want to take the opportunity away from black people either. I actually like I on the face of it, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I like the character. I watch her in Grownish.
Yeah.
And so I could see, like, to me, I could see that creative directorial choice. And so I think it could still work. But I think if I were in those shoes, the iconic thing about Ariel is her red hair. I'd want to keep the red hair, which would mean that I'd have to go with a white person because black people don't really grow red hair. That's that kind of hue, right? So I want to keep the character as close to its iconic look as possible. And so that's just what I would do.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine Cinderella as a redhead?
Well, I can imagine her as black because they did Brandy
22 years ago.
22 years ago.
That's
so
true.
Brandy was Cinderella.
Yeah.
Well,
but that's like The Wiz and Andy. Like, they did the whole black production.
Yeah. Well, and see, part of it is going back to who's in the room when any of these things are created. Right? It goes back to the default is to whoever you're defaulting to the majority of the people who were creating it.
Yeah.
So you can create all kinds of things that don't have to be the default white. But when everybody in the room is white, then whatever you create will be the default of whatever you think life is, of what normal is. Well, we're going to make a movie about a mermaid. Well, the normal thing is to make her white. Oh, well, let's give her something flashy and colorful. We'll give her red hair, but that's just a default, right? But it's still
white.
There's
more creative reasons for red, but
yeah, sure, absolutely. And then when we do this Under the Sea number and we start talking about black people and things, the default in that room, because the way they see us, we can get to that. Because of the way they see us, they're going to draw us like Sebastian. They're going to draw us like the blackface.
And he's going to be musical.
And it's going to be musical. And that type of music, because that's what they associate. Oh, this is what Jamaicans do, which is. If you go to Jamaica, you're gonna experience that. Much like the reason they draw the cats in the cats, like Chinese, because this is what they default to, their thoughts about us and about them. And so that's where it's, because I've had these conversations with people as they're talking about Marvel characters. And, you get into newer comic books and you're seeing like Black Captain Americas, right? And things of that nature. And people are frustrated, like, why don't they just stick to the original? I go, well, when they were created, who was in the room?
Yeah.
And so you have this lack of representation of people of color because people of color were not represented in the room of the creativity.
Yeah.
And so now what we see in this sort of reparative mode, I think there's more people in the room, different people in the room. Potentially, I haven't been there, I don't know, but at least they're taking that into consideration as they move forward.
Yeah, I mean, and I like the cast because I like the casting because I like the girl, and I actually think she's got a great voice.
Yeah.
I think she's qualified creatively to do the role.
Yeah,
and I'm actually kind of excited. Yeah, right. It doesn't feel like they're like, oh, let's just like I'm excited to see what she does with it or what they do with her with it.
Yeah.
But after having thought about it, man, that's a hard switch. To me, it at least I'm not going to blame people. I guess I'll put it that way. I'm not going to blame people for being like, yeah, but she's white and redhead, and I think I might do something similar if I were in that.
Yeah,
I am. I'm saying.
Yeah, you're disagreeing. I think it's definitely jarring, and we'll see how the rest of the cast shakes out. I mean, they've got Awkwafina in there as Flounder, doing the voice of Flounder, who kind of this now becoming a very iconic Asian representation. They have not done Sebastian yet. They haven't done
Sebastian. They're Harry Styles or whatever is supposed to be
the king, the prince. Or?
Yeah, working on Prince. I was curious how that would work if they would blink on that. There's going to be a black guy or not.
Well,
and I'm very curious about King Triton.
Yeah.
What are you going to do
correct.
with him?
Yeah. It'll be James Earl Jones again.
Yeah,
It'll just
James. He just does all the king things.
Roles. That's just,
yeah. And I think it's interesting that Disney also the villains are often also, and this isn't race, and this is quite a little bit of side, but they do the gender bending also there. Like you got Ursula has this really, I would say she has feminine energy and masculine energy at the same time a little bit.
Right.
So does Scar and Jafar, they have their masculine and feminine. So there's that little bit of it too, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
This is race,
so what I would think too is going with that is I don't disagree with you about not doing that, making that choice. What I would say is, because we're talking about this imagination, this creative reparation, right? What I would say almost is, instead of going back and remaking things and just inserting, say, a black character, create something that has African-American story.
I would agree with that.
Right? And so people, again, you'll go to, well, they created Princess and the Frog, right? And so that's telling African-American story in a particular time, place. And what you find there is the princess, Tiana, she doesn't even get to stay a princess.
Yeah.
Like, she immediately, 15 minutes in, she turns into a frog.
I know.
So now she's back to that character, like, where black people tend to live in the Disney meta-narrative, if you will.
Yeah.
As, we can take you as long as you're an animal. We can do that. But if you give us an actual character, or we can take you as a villain, because even in that movie, the only sort of lead black male character is the villain. Yeah. Because even the prince wasn't.
And he leaves an impact.
He does leave an impact, because the prince was not a black male. His name was Naveen.
Yeah,
and he's almost Spanish, and even the guy who voices him is a Spanish actor. But I remember I was doing some research for whatever on the Ku Klux Klan, and I came across a video where children.
You thinking about signing up?
I was trying to get my membership card. I was trying to figure out
where is it at. I'm thinking
I wish they let me join the Ku Klux Klan.
You're checking the mail every day. Where is it?
Where is my Klan membership? I don't know. But I watched a video where they were having an issue with the Princess and the Frog, because they even said, you've got this black female having an interracial relationship with this guy.
Yeah.
So it goes to the point where, okay, we've been talking about the reparations and those things, and I'm going, there's still places in which I am unsatisfied.
Okay.
I'm unsatisfied in that, particularly as, again, we've talked about lots of ways in which they have portrayed lots of different people of color.
Yeah.
Very personally, as an African-American male, they have not given me anyone to look to yet. The best that I'll tell you and I, that we got was Uncle Remus from Song of the South. which was like their most controversial movie released back in 1946.
That sounds like the best you got, because I ain't never seen it.
You ain't never seen it, right? But because Disney has hidden it in that vault. In fact, even as Disney Plus is coming out, they're not releasing this movie because they have these. It basically takes place in the South. And you've got this old black character, white beard, who's kind of the voice, of the movie. He's kind of the conscience of the movie. He's trying to help this child who comes into a new plantation. He's trying to help him. But Disney never lets you know there's all these black people working the plantation and the white people living in the plantation. And they're talking about zippity-doo-dah, zippity.
Oh, okay.
That's where that song comes from.
Oh,
You probably heard Brer Rabbit and the Tar Baby.
Yeah, I actually, now that I see it
yeah,
on the
now that
screen
you're
there,
looking at it, you can
yeah,
see.
I do remember that.
And so part of one of the things that's the issue with Brer Rabbit is he falls into a tar pit and becomes a tar baby. Right, so they've got a whole bunch of things in that movie. I ain't got time to get into all of them, but that is the lone representative of lead African American males in Disney's lexicon, if that's the right word to even say.
Yeah.
There's just no roles. And so I go, why? What's the deal? Why haven't we been given one? I mean,
I'd say Lion King would probably be the closest
as an animal.
Modern, yes, but that's right. Well, most of it Disney.
But not. I mean, we're arguing over
I guess Ariel's
Mermaid
a mermaid and
Beauty and the Beast,
Aladdin,
Mulan, Moana,
Mulan
Lilo and
looks great, by
Stitch.
the way. Okay, no.
I mean, you can get into a lot of movies that have actual human characters in them, and yet no representation. Pocahontas. So I'm unsatisfied with that, and I'm unsatisfied that the Latino community has not gotten any real representation. I think you go Coco, but I think is that Pixar?
No,
that's Dream. That's
Coco
Dream.
is Pixar.
I think is it Pixar or DreamWorks?
It's Pixar.
So they
made you cry, therefore you know it's Pixar.
It's Pixar. That's true.
Dreamland does not care about
Before
your
Coco,
ducts.
they had the Three Caballeros. Remember that cartoon?
Yeah.
It's like Donald Duck and like some rooster and whatever.
Yeah.
So I just don't think particularly Latino African American
Coco is pretty.
adults-
Coco's close, and that's better than
Absolutely.
It's a celebration,
Absolutely.
of that culture, and what's beautiful about
But
Coco,
they were dead. They were all, they were
but what's
skeletons.
beautiful, like you talk to someone who's Mexican or whatever, or Hispanic, and they're like, man, we love, like, it was well received by the people who were trying to represent, which is a good litmus test.
Absolutely. Because I am still unsatisfied.
Yeah, it's true. I guess you're right. Like, there's not, again, Lion King would have to be the closest
That would be
thing.
it. That would be the closest.
Yeah. Which is, for what it's worth, is one that, for many, it's the top one or two Disney cartoons.
I know. Now, Disney tried to make they're doing some things, I think, to try to make, again, this imagination reparation. Particularly like so one of the movies, the new movie that I think would be the best representation of Disney saying, okay, we're doing things a little different, or we're going to make a stand, is Zootopia.
Yeah.
Zootopia is one we've even talked about in Threaded as one to utilize to talk through some of the conversations.
Right. To spark conversations. Kudos, again, animals.
Yeah.
But kudos to the varying ways they deal with social dynamics in that cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
You can deal with race, class,
some
political stuff if you think more about it. But Zootopia's, man, that's
legit.
that's an interesting make for Disney.
Yeah. So question at the end: have they repaired? Is this actual reparations, if you will?
I think it's important for Disney to. I think they're heading in the right direction, and I think it's important for Disney and the rest of us, for better or for worse, to think very intentionally about what they represent. And I think there's some places where they're doing harm, but I can see where, like, it's a gutsy call to make Ariel black, and they know
it.
They know that that's a gutsy call. They know that they're going to alienate many of their fans, and to choose. This is where reparations is.
Yeah,
to choose to leave some money on the table.
Yeah, that's good.
Right, based on this creative decision.
Yeah.
Which, cause I think it is. I think if they made a redhead, they could have found somebody.
Yeah.
If they'd have done that, they probably would have made more. But some people are going to not watch this film because of Halle Bailey, and I think Disney made a calculated risk on that, and so I give them credit for some it's weird. It's not reparations to black people, but it is it was a money decision that hurt them instead of helping them.
Yeah, because in most ways, many of the reasons why people did the things and continue to do the things to people of color usually comes down to an economic decision.
Yeah. They did it because society would respond well to it,
right.
and they at least wouldn't be hurt by it, and so I would say that they're moving in the right direction, and then by giving black actors more opportunities, also. That's what was taken away, so that's helpful. I'm with you. I don't know that I'm fully 100% satisfied, but
you're not fully 100%.
I'm not,
okay.
but I would say I think we're headed in the right direction with it, and I think so long as we continue to have the conversation in a way that's fruitful, then I think we can keep doing it. I think if we overtax every individual decision and make everything about race, then at some point you put them in we can't win
anywhere.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so then you're like, well, forget it. We'll just make the money then.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think that's, and again, into that, the discussion about, the reparation piece, I think it's there. I like that they're making these decisions. They have to be intentional. Whether it's the movies that they're making and releasing something like a Zootopia, or even making those decisions to put a Black Mermaid. These are decisions that, again, they were intentionally made before the opposite way, so they need to intentionally make them now. I do think that, again, reparations, it's not just about a financial piece, like what's the money, but it's repairing the things that have been broken. It's creating a society now in which when we tell the stories about people, when we tell stories to children, that we're giving them a fuller picture. Yeah. We're putting in more nuance. We're not just saying that the only people under the sea that can be these sort of stereotypical black people are the animals, but but you can have the default be that, and that's okay. And so I think it's a great move for Disney because they do carry a lot of weight and influence.
I was going to say Disney owns, again, we joke about it, but legitimately they own so much. They were the chief storyteller in America.
Absolutely.
Right now. And so the stories that they choose to tell and how they choose to tell them shape culture.
Yeah, exactly. So I love the move because they're trying to be more inclusive in their storytelling. I would love for them to stop making me pay multiple times for the same stinking story. They're creative. They got Imagineers over there.
But you will go see Little Mermaid now.
Look, I'm so angry the whole thing because I've seen them all. I have paid money. I paid money last night to see a movie. I knew exactly what it was going to be.
Would you go see? But you're going to go see Little Mermaid.
Doggone it. I'm going to go see that friggin' movie.
You're going to see it because
it's on. But that's why I'm going to see it.
But what if Sebastian is like Snoop or something?
Doggone, I'm still going to pay them that friggin' money. Because I would be really interested.
Sebastian,
I would be
under the sea, baby.
He's going to be smoking weed under the sea or something. I just can't.
Right.
And I would pay money. That's what I hate about Disney is I'm paying for everything. I mean, I'm going to the musicals too. I'm like, when's Aladdin coming to town? When's Lion King coming to town? I'm in.
Yeah.
And so I'm mad. So stop making me pay for the same stuff. But thank you for repairing some of it.
Yeah,
but make some new things out there. Yeah, and I'd like to see them saying why they're doing it. That's where that lament.
Well, this is where this is going to come from. This Little Mermaid decision.
Yeah.
He said actually this was the best person.
Well, see, I think that's fine, but I want
them to say we want it to diversify it and make it more appropriate to the cultural context
because we have done a poor job in the past of shaping young minds about people of color. Kind of like National Geographic did a year ago, where they came out and they said, look, we made a mistake for the past however many decades. We've only shown you one part of Africa, and it doesn't show the truth about everything. And so we're going to do differently now.
Okay.
Those, to me, that's kind of the lament portion of it, where they go, doggone it, we've made some mistakes. And you'll see them, they scrub things, right? They'll scrub because they're releasing some of the stuff out of the vault. They'll scrub scenes, or they won't release certain things, but they won't say it outright, like, man, that was terrible.
Yeah.
They'll say, you know what, we know that our audience may not understand fully the context of which this was in, and it could hurt their feelings if we do this, and so we're not going to do this. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But I think when we get into what reconciliation looks like, and even it's partially a reparation, if you will, it's not just about the changing of the action, but it's also a recognition that what we had done before was not.
And real quick, I know and I think there's a distinction that even for some people who may be listening to this that and think, well, oh my gosh, the world is so sensitive, and I agree.
Sure.
We're in a hypersensitive,
but we created that world,
adolescent world right now. But this conversation is not so much about how offended we are.
Right.
This is about telling stories that properly represent humanity in its fullest. And so what you should hear is not that, man, I'm mad, even though some of the stuff is frustrating. Sure. It's really like what we desire is a fuller picture of humanity, like all together. Show all of the stories and allow the proper representation to show up in that, and you're going to see that you're entertained by it because it's different. And everybody knows that creative is about different and new and not normal, and
learning
really
new
great
stories.
So it's not about sensitivity, although it may have started there. That may have been the inciting incident, the inciting feeling, but it's really just about let's tell great stories.
And show the different diversity,
properly realistic, tell the holistic stories
about the diversity and the beauty of that we have the benefit of experiencing in this country, particularly because this is why we created the podcast, right? It's colorful conversations by colorful people about Christianity, culture, and race, and we are a colorful folk, right? We have got lots of colors. We have got people who represent lots of different cultures in there, and in some sense, we are all colored. This is why we call it colored commentary, right? So it's been a good time. I'm excited to be anything you got to say before we check out?
And thanks. I would love to hear from some of you guys. Shoot us an email at coloredcommentary@wearethreaded.org and tell us how you feel about Ariel.
About Ariel.
You can just put in the subject either Ariel or hashtag not my Ariel. That's
not my Ariel. Got it. I got it.
Or hit us up on any of the things, Facebook or any of those spaces where we are threaded. You can find us there. But I love in one way or another to hear how people think about Ariel. Although I'm sure if we just look on Twitter, we're
going to see everything we need. Cool. Well, man, thank you guys for listening to Colored Commentary. This is a colorful world. It's colorful people. So you guys stay colored out there.